Aggressive patience is the key to family business succession. Today on Construction Genius, I'm joined by Dimitri Sidiropoulos, Vice President of Delphi Plumbing and Heating. And we're going to dive into the succession process that he's going through right now. His father started the business many years ago. He's now the Vice President and stepping into senior leadership roles. And as he's transitioned from sweeping floors to setting vision and making sure that the company is on a growth track from $30 million to $100 million in revenue, he's deep into managing that succession, casting vision for the company, negotiating the transition with his father from a relational and operational perspective. And you're going to learn a ton about family succession planning and execution in our conversation. Let's dive right in. This is Eric Anderton, and you're listening to Construction Genius, a leadership masterclass. Thomas Edison said that genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. If you're a construction leader, you know all about the perspiration, and this show is all about the 1% inspiration that you can add to your hard work to help you to improve your leadership. Dimitri, welcome to Construction Genius.
Thank you for having me, Eric.
Yeah, it's great. Please introduce yourself to the audience.
I'm Dimitri Sidiropoulos, Vice President of Delphi Plumbing and Heating, Delphi for short. We are a heavy mechanical, mid-sized construction company working out of Brooklyn, New York. Our main geographical area is the 5 boroughs of New York City. The business was founded by my father in 1980, and I have been in this position for about 10 years now.
Okay, excellent. Is your dad still involved in the business?
Yes.
So you guys are a family business. What's the biggest myth you've heard about running a family business in construction, and how does your experience challenge that?
The biggest myth that I've heard is that family cannot work together. Family cannot be in business together. Too many challenges, too much fighting. There is that aspect of it, but the positives of a family business far outweigh the negatives.
How many family members do you have in the business?
Just me and my dad.
Okay, so are any spouses involved or anything like that?
No.
No? Okay, interesting. Tell me about your relationship with your dad. How, as a young man, how did you view the business? Was it something that you always wanted to get into? Is it something that just came to you at a certain point in your life? How did that work?
So growing up, if I wasn't in school, I was working, and I was working in the business. I started working in the warehouse, sweeping floors, doing menial tasks just to pass the time and start from the bottom. As I got older, I joined the apprenticeship for the union, went through the apprenticeship, came out, was a journeyman, and graduated now to project manager and eventually vice president. Back then, 15 years or 20 years ago, I would not see myself where I am now.
And why is that?
The main reason that is because it was always there and I didn't appreciate it. I didn't appreciate the opportunity that was in front of me, that somebody was willing to give me and coach me and mentor me to become where we are today and who I am today.
So did your dad always have that in mind, do you think? Or is it something where he was like, I want to see what he does, see if he proves himself, and then decide from there?
So my dad always said, it's here if you want it. If you don't want it, I'll sell it. So
okay.
It was always in the back of his head. It's just I had to prove to myself more than him that I was willing to go through it and do it and do the work and take it over.
So it seems to me in family businesses that you kind of get two extremes. You get the extreme where the dad or the mom just hands the business to the next generation, and they're not proven, they haven't gone through the difficulties of, starting, like you said, sweeping the floors. And then the other extreme is like where the father is completely hands off, not really mentoring, just seeing what happens and then going from there. Where would you place your dad on that spectrum?
I would say right in the middle.
Okay.
Right. So he was not hands off. He was hands off enough to let me make my own mistakes and figure things out, but he was not hands off enough to let me fail major projects and, hurt the business. But I was allowed to make my mistakes.
Right. So you went through the apprenticeship. In your mind, were you thinking of yourself more just as someone who built the projects and someone who worked in the field? When did you begin to think about a career path that might go from the field into the office and then into executive leadership?
So I liked the field because I did not like sitting in an office, and school was not my favorite thing to do. I did graduate college, but it took, could have a doctorate by the time I graduated.
Yeah, right.
It hit me when I saw a different future that the company could take, a different growth pattern. And I felt like I could step into that and help push it forward.
Tell me about that, the growth pattern, because obviously when someone starts a business, they have a particular perspective and they perhaps have a direction they're taking it in, and then you come in and as you're getting into the business, you add something to that. Tell us a little bit about that change in vision that you saw.
So I think we were at a point where if we did not grow, we're no longer giving our employees the opportunities that they would require for growth, right? There was a ceiling there that had to be broken.
How would you describe that ceiling?
There is different ways to measure it. You can measure it by revenue. You can measure it by projects. You can measure it by whatever you want. But if somebody has aspirations and you have an A player on your team, they want to be the best that they can be. And if you don't give them that opportunity to do that, they will go somewhere else and do that.
Yes.
So most of our field guys are 10-year guys. Some of the guys in the office are 20, 25-year guys. I mean, we grew up with each other in the business, right? So it's only fair to everyone that you create those opportunities for somebody else to take.
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest dilemmas that contractors have is that they get to a certain point and they have a good crew, a good set of people, and then that decision to grow is a challenging one, though, because when you grow, obviously you take on risk, additional responsibility. What is it about your company that caused people to want to stay with you guys? Like you said, you have 10-year, 20-year folks there. What is it about them that causes them not to want to go off somewhere else?
Partially, it's their personalities. We have very high standards that we keep, and the people that stick around are a cultural fit because they want to perform at that high standard. And we internally regulate the new guys coming in. And if they're not going to meet that standard, obviously they don't last too long. We're also very open. I mean, I don't know how many shops our size you can walk in and talk to the owners, right? And we want the best for everybody, right? The easier we can make the jobs of the people in the field, the better the jobs are going to go, and the more work we're going to win next, right? Same goes in the office. Our jobs are here to make their lives easier and allow them to do their jobs better.
And just tell us what kind of revenue you guys doing roughly, just so we get an idea, the audience has an idea of your size.
30 plus.
30 plus. Okay, excellent. Now, you mentioned high standards here. I've never met a construction CEO who says we have low standards, and yet companies struggle attracting and retaining people who are talented. How are those high standards expressed in your business, and how do you use those to filter out people who are not a fit and attract people who are a fit?
The standards are expressed by starts with me. I have to live those standards every day, because if I don't, somebody's going to point it out and say, well, if you're not doing it, nobody should be doing it. And it's happened before. People don't forget if you're not living those standards. How do we express that to everyone else? It's a pass down. The guys that have been here the longest, they know them. I mean, it's not like we write them down. It's just an attitude that we have, an expectation of what we need to do.
Can you give me an example of how those high standards are expressed in the way that you execute your work?
So, I mean, every construction guy is going to say, yeah, we build quality and we build with integrity and we build with all that, right? What makes us different? We've had the same clients going over 30 years now. And we have a personal relationship with all the clients in the public agencies that we deal with. And they've been dealing with us for so long, and we've been helping them the same way, they help us to get their projects complete. And we go out of our way to show them the right way to do it. And we have the expertise to do it.
A lot of companies struggle with the people that they have. And one of the ways it's framed is I'll be talking to an executive and they say, I know this person is not an A player, but we've got projects on the books and I need at least a warm body out there in the field, or I'm willing to tolerate a little bit of poor performance because good help is hard to find. Is that something you guys have experienced, or how do you filter through that so that you maintain those high standards that we've been talking about?
So everybody experiences that, and it might not be a B guy, it might be a C guy too, right?
Yeah.
As the projects are ongoing, you need those warm bodies to do the work.
Right.
How we filter them out is we are constantly looking for the right people, whether that's putting feelers out through our networks that we have or just word of mouth from the guys that work with us. We'll give a guy a shot for field guy. We'll give a guy a shot for a week, 2 weeks, see what they got. Then if they're not cutting it, they might fire themselves because they know that they can't meet the standard. And that's how we rotate guys out. In the office, what makes somebody a B person or a C person? If they're not willing to actually do the work and learn, then we can't help you. If you're willing to learn and put the work in and figure things out, we have many ways of, career progression within the company that we will show you how to do it, but you need to do the work.
If I was talking to your dad and I asked, why is it that Dimitri's now a vice president and not just running a crew or something like that, what would he say?
I hope he'd say the vision, because that's one of the biggest things that a leader needs to do is cast the vision, right?
Yeah.
You need to tell everybody what the goal is and how we're going to get there and help everybody achieve the same goal, right? So the vision is we're going to be $100 million company in the next 10 years, working in multiple geographical locations. And I say that often to everyone because they need to believe it. They do believe it. And the more we say it, the more it's going to happen.
Take us into the conversations you began to have with your dad as you were thinking through this vision, as you began to consider it. Was that something that your dad resisted to begin with? Was it something that he was open to? How did those conversations go?
He knows that he's at the end of his time, right, with the company. Right. So obviously, if you're at the end of time with a company, you don't want to take on that risk and you don't want to take on the pains of growing and all that.
Yep.
So, of course, there's resistance. Was there so much resistance that he said, we're not doing that? Absolutely not. But he's encouraging it and we're seeing it happen now.
Again, take us into that conversation, though. Was it something where it was a series of conversations? Was it something where you brought it up one day in sort of a passing manner, or you had like official meetings? Because the reason I ask this is because in family businesses, sometimes it's like, okay, so outside of work, we're not going to talk about work. We're not going to get into it so much. Inside of work, here's an official meeting that we're having, and now we're putting on our work hats, and now we're going to talk about where the business is going and negotiate what that looks like, sort of in the executive boardroom. Tell us a little bit more about how that looked like for you. And the reason I'm asking this is because, as people listen to this discussion, they're looking for insights into how to go about this for themselves.
So you're absolutely right about when we're home, we're not talking about work. I mean, that's how we had it. Did we have an official meeting and I draw this out on a whiteboard and say, this is where we're going? No. This came from numerous small conversations that resulted from problems that we were trying to fix. And the ultimate problem that led to this vision is we need to create more opportunities for people, like I started at the beginning. And the more opportunities we can create for somebody, the larger we'll grow and the better we'll all do.
That I think it's really clear there that you were seeking to grow in order to give your people opportunities. Was that something they were telling you, or was that something you guys were just observing and saying, hey, if we grow, then these people will stick with us, but if we don't, then they're going to look for opportunities elsewhere?
It was the second one. If we don't do this, we're going to lose our best people.
Yeah.
Because the competition that we have, we're in a kind of a niche field in the heavy mechanical wastewater.
Yeah.
But the competition are major players that are bigger than us. So it's very easy for them to open a checkbook and hire whoever they got to hire. But us combating that is by maybe not getting as big as them, but getting big enough to play with the big boys.
How do you position yourself with your clients when they're considering you versus one of those major guys in terms of, Delphi's a little smaller. These guys are bigger. They've got more resources. Maybe they can take on more risk or absorb more issues. Take us into those discussions and how you position yourself to be successful.
Personal relationships, right? Like I said before, we tend to go out of our way more than others to help the client. And the client leans on us to help them. Sometimes They don't know what the answer is. And we provide that answer for them. As far as resources, you can have double the resources that we do, but the people that we have is what makes a difference.
And I know you do work with city and state agencies, and I'm assuming, are most of those hard bid environment?
Yes, they're all hard bid.
And then you also have negotiated projects as well?
No, they're all hard bid. The reason I pause there is sometimes it's the lowest responsive bidder. So yes. Sometimes we're not the lowest, but we still get the job through negotiation, if that makes sense.
Please explain that to us a little bit, because, in many hard bid environments, and the reason I'm asking is you're emphasizing personal relationships, but many people who are in hard bid environments, they come with the perspective that, well, I can't really develop too much of a personal relationship with these people because it's not the same as in a negotiated private environment. And, the number's the number and all that kind of stuff.
So the number is the number in hard bid, but relationships are everything. relationships with the clients, relationships with your vendors, relationships with everybody that you do interact with. So when I said we weren't the lowest bidder on some of the contracts that we won, the lowest bidder did not meet the standards that the client was looking for. And our relationships, they know that we already can do the work and have done the work. And I can call 5 people from that agency that can vouch for us. And that's the importance of the relationship.
In the family business, obviously you and your dad, it sounds like you have a pretty close relationship from a business perspective. How do you tap into other people in the organization in terms of leadership and in terms of the growth of the business? And where do you draw the line between, when it comes to making decisions, between getting their input and then making the decisions yourselves? How much influence do they have on that?
They have influence, but the final decision is ours, right? So if there's an issue, we will discuss the issue openly, because I might not know how to fix the issue because I'm not on the front lines anymore. So the closer you can get to that issue and talk to that person and get more ideas of how to solve the issue, the better the solution is going to be. But ultimately, it would be our decision which way to go. And that's part of our job. Our job is to make that decision based on the best information available.
How do you and your dad handle conflicts when you're in disagreement on a business decision?
Over several conversations, we'll kind of go through it. It'll be a heated discussion, and we'll back off, and then we'll go at it again, then we'll go at it again. And ultimately, it's either him showing me something or I'm showing him something, where the other one is just like, oh, you know what, that makes sense. And we come to a compromise.
Think about the last time you promoted someone into a leadership role and it failed. Why did it fail? I can tell you one reason. People know how to build projects, but they don't know how to build and lead teams of people. Construction comes with its challenges that only insiders truly understand. Generic leadership training doesn't cut it. You need a program to train your leaders built specifically for construction professionals, led by an industry expert. And my online course, The Shift, is exactly that course. It has 5 modules. It'll teach your people how to control their calendars and reduce stress and embrace chaos and accomplish their critical tasks. It will teach them the 3 essential messages they have to communicate every day in order to motivate and lead their team effectively. It'll show them how to build and lead a high-performing team, give them a framework for running effective meetings so they'll be able to solve problems in less than an hour, and also give them a higher perspective on their leadership that will enable them to work on the business and on their teams and not get stuck in the weeds micromanaging. So go out to my website, theshift.constructiongenius.com, read all about the course, and then enroll yourself and your leaders in the course, and I guarantee that it will transform your leadership. If it does not, you take the whole course and you didn't get benefit from it, you just send me an email, eric@constructiongenius.com, and I will cheerfully refund you 100% of your money. I'm really confident this course will transform your leadership. So again, go out to the website, theshift.constructiongenius.com, learn more about the course, and start taking it today. So you use the word heated there. In some family relationships, when things get heated, things break. What do you guys do to make sure that even when things are heated, there isn't a break there?
Sometimes it's like 2 bulls locking horns, right? We're both very strong type A personalities. So we both don't want to back off. Is it going to break our relationship? No, because at the end of the day, you know, once 5 o'clock rolls around and I see him after 5 o'clock, he's still my dad, right?
Right.
There's nothing that's going to change that. And if we have a decision that we can't meet eye to eye on, sometimes you just got to let it go. And that one decision might be 80% of what you were going to do anyway. Just accept it and move forward.
Yeah, it's interesting because you describe that A-type personality. I know many dads, I can say this for myself as a father, that, you know, I have kids who are A-types as well. And you get into these clashes. And as a dad, you know, I'm sure your dad has a bunch of wisdom and experience that he values tremendously, and he's talking to you, and perhaps in a particular situation, he feels that he has more wisdom and experience than you do.
And he probably does.
Yeah, no. But at the same time, you know, you were talking about this idea of innovation, right? And I mean, I know my kids see things completely differently than I do, and that different perspective can be tremendously useful. And yet, you know, I can resist that innovation or that different perspective just because I'm not used to it or it's not my idea or something like that. So how does your dad go through that process? How have you observed him perhaps over time as you've grown? And I think of this sort of balance of control, as you've grown in the business, as you've become more experienced, as you've proven yourself, have you found him sort of coming more to the point of view of hearing what you have to say and receiving it and considering it more fully?
Yes. And the best way I found to go about getting that result is asking him what he thinks first and taking that wisdom that he has and applying it to the situation at hand. Because not just for him, but any mentor-mentee relationship, any father-son relationship, they've been there before, right? They've been down the road before. So whatever you're trying to figure out, they have some experience that can help you. And the more you involve them in the help, the more they're going to be open to your idea, as long as it's not going to hurt anything based on their experiences that they already have.
So was there a particular project or a particular conflict where, as you went through it and were successful in it, it changed your dad's perspective on you? Or was it something that just developed over time where he saw you maturing and began to value what you said more and more?
It was definitely something. It was definitely over time, right?
Yeah.
Even if I had a success at one project, that does not mean that I'm going to have success on the next project, right?
Yes.
You need to look at it over a certain period and evaluate if this person is going to be the next leader, because being successful as a project does not make you a leader either.
Yeah. What advice would you give to, again, and this may be a difficult question for you to answer because you're not in your father's shoes, but, as I'm thinking about your father, he's the founder of the business. It would be natural for most founders to be reluctant to let go and for successors to feel like they have something to prove. So what's your advice to both the founders who are reluctant to let go and someone like yourself who is a successor who has, big plans and big ambitions?
Start with the successor because that's what I know best, right? Like I said, ask the right questions, pull the knowledge from the founder, and be humble about the answers that you're going to get. You might not like the answer you're going to hear, but it's based on facts and experience, right? So if you have a big idea that the founder has done and tried already and it didn't work, you need to let it go.
Right.
The same goes the opposite way, from the founder to the successor. There's things that you might not have tried, right? That you don't have that experience, and you're relying on your experience to judge those ideas, where you can start trying those ideas at a much smaller scale and see if they work rather than go all in.
It's interesting. Before we hit record here, you and I were chatting and this phrase came up that you mentioned that was tremendously interesting to me. It's this idea of aggressive patience.
Yep.
And obviously that feels kind of a weird thing to say, right? So how can you be aggressively patient? Give us a little bit of insight into that phrase, because it came from you. What are you thinking in terms of our discussion with this succession and this transition in terms of that aggressive patience?
So for me, aggressive patience is you need to be constantly aggressive in how you're going to develop yourself, right? You need to develop yourself into the person, leader, successor that you need to be to take over the spot. You can do that in many different ways. You can, if you have to get special certificates, if you have to get a license, if you go back to school to learn something. And the patience is, it will come. Might not come as soon as you want, but it will come. And when it does come, you'll be ready to take it and run with it.
So it's interesting. So the aggressive perspective is one where you are aggressively developing yourself in whatever areas you need to improve, but then at the same time, knowing that you have to wait. It's not going to come all at once.
Correct.
So then you began in the union, you went through the apprenticeship program, started working in the field. As you were going through the process of building projects and learning more about the business, when did you realize that being a great builder wasn't enough and you had to become a great businessman?
When I had to run multiple projects, meaning go from project manager or site super or foreman to PX and executive. There's a completely different dynamic to running the business than running a project. Just examples are cash flow and lines of credit and stuff that you know nothing about as a project manager or a site super. That needs to be in place and needs to be functioning properly for the business to obviously move forward.
So that's one of the biggest challenges. You have a PM who's aggressive, who wants to get something done, who sees what needs to be done, has a way of solving a problem, and then someone in a PX role or a VP role just has a different perspective. Tell us a little bit about how you manage your PMs now, having had that bigger picture perspective, and how that affects decision making.
The conversations are a lot different. They're not project specific, meaning they're not so much about the problems on the project, and more about how are we billing this project? How many guys do we need on this project in the next month, 2 months? A lot more forecasting, a lot more cash flow projections.
And do you sit down with your PMs and walk them through that side of business thinking to help them, or do you just let them run with it, make the decisions, and deal with it later?
We sit down with everybody and run through that whole scenario, because the way we explain it is that whatever anybody does in the company has an effect on the entire company,
right?
Especially with bringing revenue in and cash flow and all that, right? So if the guy doesn't put pipe in the field, the PM doesn't bill it, the accounts receivable doesn't submit the paperwork properly, all that needs to happen to make us move forward. And the more we explain that why, the easier it is for them to understand the importance of it.
In the give and take of allocating resources across different projects, you might have a PM at one point who wants something in terms of labor or materials, but can't have it because it's going to go to a different project. And then they often feel that they're going to get judged on their projects in terms of the production and in terms of the profit, and yet they don't have complete control over that. How do you both incentivize and then communicate with those PMs so they understand that you see the big picture and they're not just getting judged on their project, but they're getting judged on how they're contributing to the whole company?
That's a great question. I don't know if I've ever done that, but
Okay.
that's a very interesting perspective. So our PMs, sometimes they get intertwined in each other's projects just because of manpower. So we have, mechanical, and then we have structural, different unions, different trades, different all that. Sometimes we would have a GC job that has mechanical on it. So we'll have our mechanical PM involved with the manpower, but it's run by the general construction project manager. If that makes sense.
So you have like a PM above the PMs, so to speak?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So we have two teams that has one senior PM at the head and then PMs underneath, and the rest of the management team underneath that.
Yep.
So we don't really look at it like they'll look at it at individual project P&Ls just to see where they're at.
Yep.
But we look at it as an overall picture. Like our revenue goals are not PMA has 15 million and PMB has 15. Total, we're looking at 30, right? Total, we're looking at X amount of net profit.
Yep.
Whether you do it or you do it, all on the same team, right? We can't be competing against each other. We got to help each other get there. And if you incentivize only to look down into your own project, I don't think that's good in the long term, because you're competing against each other instead of competing against everybody outside the organization. You know what I mean?
So that's one of the keys, I think, is because a lot of companies, frankly, they struggle with that, where the PMs are almost pitted against each other, it seems at times, or even the field teams, and they're battling for resources, and they lose vision that, hey, we're all on the same team, and it's about winning for the company, not necessarily just winning for my project at this particular point in time. What mental shift did you have to make? So it's interesting, right? You're working in the field, you're putting in pipe. Maybe you move up to project management then, and so you're responsible for a group of guys. But then you got to make this mental shift from working in the business to working on the business. What was your biggest challenge there?
It feels like you're not doing anything. You're not doing your job. And that's the silliest feeling to have, because what you're doing is the most important thing in the business, is working on the business. And in the beginning, I had to allocate time during my week in my schedule to work on the business. Like I had to carve out time and make sure I sat down to do whatever I had to do to work on the business, because as much as you get elevated and you get promoted, you still want to be involved in the trenches. You still want to be involved in the day to day. And that is not how you grow or do anything better, improve the business at all. You cannot be there with blinders on. You have to be looking up and out and 10,000 foot view.
Now, how did you come to this realization? Because again, you said it's silly, and I understand what you're saying, but it's like it's almost in your bones, right, to want to do stuff,
right?
And that feeling, you have a sense of guilt almost that I'm not doing the work. Was that something that your dad helped you with, or was it something that an outside mentor helped you with, or was that just a realization you came to on your own?
All three. I mean, I'm in some peer groups. My dad focused me on hey, we have to do this, get out of the day to day and, focus on that one thing. And naturally it just happened because if you don't do it, nobody's doing it. And if you don't work on the business doesn't grow. So depending what your vision is and what your goal is, if your vision is, I want to stay the same, then you can be the PX. You don't need to be the leader owner, right? But our vision is to, like I said, $100 million company. I need to be working on the business, making processes, procedures, getting us ready to get there.
Now, as you're growing to 100 million, how much longer is your dad going to be in the business roughly?
5 years about. Yeah, okay. I mean, he's moving out now.
Okay. What's your succession plan then for the next generation after you? Because again, growing to 100 million, it'll take at least some time, but 5 years goes like that.
Yep.
And pretty soon 10 and 15 years goes pretty quickly too.
Yep. I have 3 kids. Hopefully they want to join the path. If they don't, that's okay. I'm going to say the same thing like my dad said. If you guys don't want it, I'll sell it. But until then, there's plenty of progression of current employees inside the business now that need to step up and take new roles, right? And then we need new people to take their roles that they're currently doing. And that's one of the things that we've worked on the business, is creating a career path with specific measurables to show them, hey, you can come in as a project intern and this is how you get to being a project manager. And we're very heavy on employee development because of that. Right. We want to home grow our PMs. We don't want to, not that we don't look outside, but we'd rather promote from within and keep the culture that we have.
And do you promote your PMs from the field?
Sometimes.
Okay. All right. Quick break to talk about my book, Construction Genius. This is what I want you to do. Go to Amazon, search for the book, read all of the 5-star reviews, because there's a ton of them. Over 50 to be precise. And the reason I want you to read them is because real people wrote those reviews who've actually read the book. And it'll give you an idea of why you should go and buy a copy right now on Amazon. And here's the deal. If you purchase 10 or more copies for your company, and then send me an email, eric@constructiongenius.com, I'll come in via Zoom and do a 1-hour Q&A and a bonus training session with your team at no charge. I normally charge $4,500 for an hour of my time. And again, for you, I'll do it at no charge if you buy 10 or more copies of my book. And the reason you should buy it is all in the title. It's effective, hands-on, practical, simple, no BS, leadership, strategy, sales, and marketing advice for construction companies. So if you're in the construction industry, this book is for you. So you can get it on Amazon. You can also get it on Audible in the audio version as well, narrated by yours truly. And I know you'll really enjoy it. So go out and get the book. And now back to the interview. Let me go back just real quick because, as you're growing the business and you're thinking of your 3 kids, what are you going to do differently with them? And what are you going to do the same in terms of how your dad worked with you coming up into the business?
I'll start with the same. So the same is they're going to start from the bottom. There is no preference because they have Sidiropoulos as the last name. The worst thing that I could do is give them a leadership role without them being ready to be a leader. What am I going to do different? I would like them, if they want to be in the construction field, I would like them to work somewhere else first, prove themselves somewhere else, and then come in and help us. Right?
Yeah,
I
that's something.
That was my hang up in the beginning, was it was always there and I was always there. If it wasn't special anymore. Does that make sense?
No, tell me more about that. What do you mean?
Meaning it was like being my dad's business made it special, but the more I was in it, it lost that shine of being special. So if I went somewhere else and I worked 5 years outside and I came in, now it's something new. Now it's special. Now it's, there's my dad. This is his company. It's new all over again.
Yeah, that's interesting because there's different philosophy. There's basically 2 philosophies that family-run businesses have. One is to just bring them all the way in. Most people say start at the bottom and work your way through. The other philosophy is, okay, you can start at the bottom sweeping floors when you're a kid, but you're going to go somewhere else and work for a while and prove yourself there. I know me personally, I totally see the logic of the second approach. Did it take you a while to come to that, or was that something that it just kind of struck you one day? How did you come to that conclusion that you want your kids to work outside of the business before coming in?
It wasn't an aha moment, but the more I've been talking about it with conversations like this, the more that's the conclusion that I've come to.
Yeah.
because I figured out that was my hang up when I was younger.
It's interesting, huh?
If I can avoid that, I can put them 5-10 years ahead of where I started.
What are the conversations like with your wife in terms of her perspective on the kids and coming into the business? Is that something she's into? Is it something that she doesn't really have an opinion on? How does that work?
So my kids are still young. I got a 6, a 4, and a almost 2-year-old. So,
oh yeah, there you go. Nice.
Yeah. So
that's beautiful.
we haven't really gotten into it that much, but what we talked about, I mean, it's just like I said, the opportunity is there. And my wife is an attorney. If one of the kids want to become an attorney, great. We
Sure.
need construction lawyers, right? If they want to become an accountant, great. We need a controller, a CFO.
Yes.
Right. There's so many opportunities in a construction business besides building projects.
Yep.
That there's an opportunity for whatever they want to do if they want it.
So it's interesting. I was having a conversation with another contractor who's just gone through a succession. And when they were picking out the owners for the next generation that they were going to sell it to, they weren't family members, but they had a number of requirements. And one of them is that they would have a technical background. And then the second one, which I found really interesting, is that they had to be able to sell work. And as you were just describing the dynamic there, where, you can be an accountant or you could be a lawyer, there's a lot of different stuff to do in construction. And you may not have thought of this yet, but do you think that your kids need to have experience actually building the work to be able to participate in the business? Or is it sufficient just to have a technical specialty that is not necessarily building related, but contributes to the business?
So a construction company is a business whose product is building. They need to know their product, no matter what position they're going to have, because by knowing the product, that's going to make them a better attorney or a better accountant or whatever position they're going to want to do.
Yes.
Right. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. So then are you saying that you would like to see them have at least a little bit of field experience or a little bit of building experience, even if they're going to go into different parts of the business?
Yeah. I think everybody should, if you're working in a construction company, you should get out to the field once a quarter. Go see what we're doing, right? Some people in the office never seen the field guys that they're processing their paperwork every day. They're doing payroll. They don't know what this guy looks like.
Yep.
Right? They don't know what he does. They have no idea. All they know is here's his name, here's his local, and this is how many hours he worked. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Same thing with the bookkeeper, right? If you're looking at cash flow projections and all that, you need to see what contributes to that cash flow. You need to see what is bringing the revenue in. It's not just some piece of paper. It's guys with hammers and nails putting work in.
It's interesting. I'm doing a little bit of math here. I may be off on it, but let's say your dad has 5 years to go, and then your kids are, let's say, 15 years out from coming into the business in a sort of a meaningful way. That leaves you a 10-year gap, and where you're going to be, I'm assuming, heading the business up without other family members involved. In terms of the career path, and you were talking about this, you're growing the business, and part of the reason why is so you can retain people. What is your plan for those folks who are tremendously talented, but perhaps not only want to build the work and run the work and manage the work, but would be interested in an ownership piece in the business? Is there any path that you're thinking about that for that? Or is that something where if that comes up, you'll just say, well, we're keeping this in the family and that opportunity is not available?
Honestly, I haven't thought about it. And that's a whole nother question to think about.
Yeah. Huh?
As of right now, I would say that opportunity is not available, but there are other ways that employees can feel ownership and work towards improving themselves within the company rather than actually taking ownership shares. I mean, it could be ghost shares. It could be, there's a bunch of avenues to do that.
Absolutely.
And that I'm open to, obviously.
Yeah. It's interesting because I'm thinking about one of my clients who owns his business and he retains his most talented people by giving them responsibility for a P&L in their side of the business and then compensating them tremendously well based on that P&L. So it's almost as if they're running a business within a business without actually being owners of a business.
Yep. And that is an excellent way to do it. And every project has its own P&L. So
yep.
That's the easiest way to do it.
One of the things that you make an emphasis on is leading by example. What does that look like in your day-to-day leadership?
So leading by example, day to day. If you're not doing what you say you're doing or what you expect others to do, they are going to call you out on it right away. And that's the end of your standards. That's the end of your culture. That's the end of everything. And they will not forget the one time that you didn't live up to your own standard and live up to your own culture. Right? It's very hard to maintain that discipline of leading by example. And I think that is the most important thing that a leader can do is to maintain that discipline, however they're going to maintain it. And that's something that you need to work on yourself outside of the business. That is a personal thing that you need to straighten out.
And what do you do to keep that straight, so to speak?
I'm big on fitness. I think fitness is the easiest way to build discipline and do hard things and check off easy boxes, right? So if I'm going to say this without hopefully offending anybody, but if you look at somebody who is not maintaining themselves, how can they maintain anything else?
That's interesting. I like that. So tell us, what kind of fitness stuff do you like to do?
I have a gym in my house, so I like to lift weights. I'm not big on running, but I do it because I don't like it. And 4 or 5 times a week, 4:30 in the morning, I'm downstairs in the gym. Right, I'm walking as much as I can during the day because as you get older, things start to not work too well. So.
Yep, I know what you mean. Now, it sounds like people in your business are comfortable calling you out if they see something that's not correct, or that's not in alignment with what the standards are. Is that right?
Yes.
How do you create that environment? Because a lot of leaders, I know I say this all the time, hey, if you have something you want to talk to me about, come and talk to me. And then, people sometimes are making that calculation. They might be saying, well, dude, the last time I talked to you, you bit my head off. So, I don't feel like getting my head bit off today. So I ain't going to come talk to you. How do you keep that open door? Particularly because, like you described, you have an A-type personality. Sometimes people, they have a challenge coming up to someone who's got a strong personality because they don't want the conflict. So how do you keep that door open with the people in your business?
So it's good to have an open door policy, but sometimes you got to come down from the mountain to the people and talk to them, right? You got to pick their brain, make them comfortable with speaking with you. And the way to do that is to go to where they are instead of them coming to you. That's a whole anxiety trip by itself, walking into the principal's office, right?
Yeah. So then you practice visiting the job sites?
Not as much as I should. And that's just the nature of the beast. Trying to get better at that. That's on one of my personal growth lists to do. And I think I've heard of one contractor who they have a weekly huddle. And they must have, 200 guys out there. Right. He does a weekly Teams huddle talking to all the men. And I think that's what I'm going to start doing because, like I said, some people in the office don't even know what they look like. I do because I worked with all of them and I'm out there enough to see them. But they are the lifeblood of what we do, right? They make the product and we need to appreciate them for that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I just had this thought here. It's like, if you're going to go do that, grab someone from the office and say, hey, come with me. I'm going to go visit a job site. I know you've never been out there before, and put on a hard hat and some boots and let's go talk to the guys.
Yeah.
That's cool. What's your big goal for the next 12 months?
Big goal for the next 12 months. So our fiscal year ends in June 31st. So we have specific revenue and net profit goals for the next year that we're doing. We're also buttoning up all our processes, like I said before, and that is my biggest goal, button up our document control processes, because if you don't tell somebody how to do something, and I don't mean that in, only do it this way, but if you don't give somebody guidelines, they will do whatever they want. And each person has a different thought of how to do it. So you need to make sure your processes and procedures are tight and everybody understands them. And that is my biggest goal. Update our process procedures. If we don't have them, put them in and communicate it properly so that everybody understands what needs to be done.
It's tremendous. So as we're wrapping up here, what are the top 3 pieces of advice you would give to a family-run business in terms of managing a succession from one generation to the next?
Communicate often. That would be number 1. Number 2, set expectations of what the successor will need to do in order to be the successor. And 3, put it on paper. Make it real. Right? This is what we're going to agree to do. And we're not going to fail at doing it.
Yeah, that's interesting, the putting on paper bit, because there's a difference between having the conversation and then sort of formalizing it in a certain way.
It doesn't have to be formal. Like I keep a running list in my iPhone of action items that I have to do to grow the business. And I check them off as I do them.
Yep.
Right? But writing it down, it's a mental thing for me that if I wrote it down, that means I have to do it. So here we go. Let's go do it.
That's cool. Awesome. So tell us a little bit more about your business here as we're wrapping up, and how people can get in touch with you if they want to.
So a website is Delphi, DELPHI, plumbingheating.com. You can find us on LinkedIn as well. And if you want to reach out, info@delphiph.com.
Excellent. We'll put that all in the show notes.
Appreciate
Dimitri,
that.
This has been really fun. I really appreciate your insights, and thanks for joining us today on Construction Genius.
Thanks for having me, Eric.
Right on. Hi, this is Eric. Thank you for listening to today's episode. I hope you enjoyed it, found it insightful and helpful. I have a quick request. Please share the episode with other people in your company and across the industry that you think would benefit from listening to it. And also, give the podcast a rating and review wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, YouTube, wherever it may be. Drop us a like, drop us a comment on YouTube. Do what you can to spread the good word about the Construction Genius podcast. I really appreciate any help that you can give me, and I look forward to catching you on the next episode. Thank you for listening to this episode of Construction Genius. Hope you found that 1% of inspiration to help you in the next few days. If you like the show, please give us a 5-star review on iTunes, share it with other construction leaders who you think would benefit, and always remember that the show is brought to you by Kick-Ass Meetings. I've been working with construction leaders since 2004, teaching them how to run extremely effective problem-solving meetings that gets their people collaborating, taps into their creativity, and to get yourself a free copy of the Kick-Ass Meeting Report, go to www.ericanderton.com/kickassmeetings. Grab yourself that free report, read it, use it in your business. You'll find it extremely useful. And thanks again for listening.